Hello everyone, this is Alex from Swoosh English. Great to see so many people in today's class. Today we're going to be talking about IELTS speaking because we know that most of the nurses who are watching right now are are prepared to go to America, and we all know that you need a 7 in IELTS speaking in order to get to meet the requirements of what the US hospitals and care homes are looking for. And we know that's a big challenge for many of you watching right now. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to go through part 1, part 2, and part 3, and we're going to have one of our very highly experienced IELTS teachers, Alexander, who's going to be joining me in the session very, very soon. And we would love to have people who are in the session to actually practice a speaking exercise with us. So we're going to do a topic card later on for part 2 of the IELTS speaking exam, and there hopefully we can show students what it's like to actually go through one of these examinations if you've not already taken the IELTS speaking exam before. I know some of you have, so we will be doing that very, very soon. We'll be giving some feedback to the student, whoever takes part, telling them what their score was, how they can improve and take it to that next level. If they're at a 6, 6.5, how do they take it to a 7? But maybe the student will be at a 7 already. So very soon I will bring my co-host Alexander, our highly experienced IELTS teacher, into today's session. And if you are new to the Swoosh English Facebook Live classes, you've never been before, it's going to be a great session for you. You're going to learn a lot. Every single week, our ex-IELTS examiner, well, not every single week, but most weeks we have our Facebook Live sessions, and our ex-IELTS examiners and teachers help you by giving you a lot of support in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, telling you what you can do to make sure that as soon as you take your exam next time, you pass with flying colors. Okay, whether it's if you're a nurse looking to go to America and you need a 7 in speaking and a 6.5 overall, or you could be a nurse watching who wants to go to the UK and needs a 7 in reading, listening, and speaking, and a 6.5 in writing. So that's now the new changes that have been made in the last couple of weeks. But like I said, I know most of the people watching right now will be nurses who are looking to go to America. So either way, it will be very, very beneficial for you, and we look forward to helping as many of you as possible. If you have questions throughout the session, please let us know, and we'll do our very, very best to help and support you. Make sure you share today's Facebook Live video if you can, so that other people can get access to all the techniques and strategies and tips that we're providing today, so that we can help as many people as possible. So we are going to get started in a couple of minutes. Let's see who is in the session today. Okay, let's see who we've got in the session. And we like to have as many people take part as possible. We've got Cherry and Hussein saying hello. Cherry Bell said good evening. Luis Mota is our LaFora admin, and like he said, we're starting in a few minutes, but we're starting now. Neely, Fahana all saying hello. Great to see so many of you. If you're a nurse from LaFora, please let us know. We are working very hard with Luis and his team to make sure that we can provide these sessions for you completely free of charge. We don't usually do these kinds of free classes for IELTS, but since we've started our collaboration with LaFora, we're trying to help as many students as possible get support with the IELTS examination, specifically in the speaking, where a lot of students are having difficulties. So please introduce yourself. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and let me know what your previous IELTS examination results were, so that we can see how we can help every single one of you who's come along today as much as possible. That's really the objective of our session today. Raphael said hi, Alex. Hello, Raphael. Mary Deason, hello. Alu, great to see you. Joan Narika, hi. Kirstine, hello. Okay, lots and lots of people in the session. Please let us know, are you looking to go to America or the UK? If you're in LaFora, I'm sure you're looking to go to America to achieve your American dream. Let me know and tell me have you taken the IELTS exam before, and what scores did you get? Okay, what scores did you get previously? Okay, see who we've got in this session. Also, we've got Camille Pangilanan. Please let us know, Camille. Are you looking to go to America, I'm guessing? And what were your previous IELTS examination scores too? So a lot more people on Facebook Live watching right now, which is great to see. And if you can share this link with other people in the group, please tag their names. If you're in Lafora, you can tag their name and make sure that they know about the class. So if you have anyone that you know who really needs help with their IELTS, it's completely free, this class. So we're going to be starting in a few minutes. If you can tag their name, then what we'll do is we'll make sure we can give you our free IELTS welcome pack. So we'll post it in the link. We'll post it to each person afterwards. So all you need to do is tag a friend's name in Lafora in the comment section here underneath the video, and they'll be able to see and get access to today's live class, and then we'll send you our free IELTS welcome pack afterwards. So make sure you do that. So is everybody ready to get started? If you are and you're ready to learn, make sure you have your pen and paper handy. Okay, a pen and paper is really important because we don't want you to just watch the session today. We want you to take part as much as possible. We want you to get involved in the exercises, ask us questions, be as proactive as possible, because if you just watch the class, you're not going to get as much out of it. But if you take part, then you will get a lot out of it. And that's really the objective at the end of this session, is for you to say, thank you, Alexander and Alex. I got so much out of the session. I now know what it takes to get a 7 in speaking, and I'm more confident in my preparations for my IELTS examination. Fantastic. So lots of people commenting. Hello, Alex, Princess, John Erica. I'm working here in Saudi Arabia, but I'm planning to take IELTS, but I know I have to learn more. Absolutely. And lots of people tagging their friends as well, who can also get access to it, especially if you're in the Middle East, which a lot of Lafora nurses are. Then most of you have probably got a day off today. So hopefully a day off means time for studying. And this is what this session is all about. So I'm going to bring our IELTS teacher, Alexander, from the UK in here. So it's really important, if you've never had access to a native English speaking IELTS teacher, it's so vitally important that especially when it comes to speaking, helping you with your pronunciation, your fluency, your grammar, helping you to get those task achievement marks as well. Really important. So I'll be bringing Alex in now. Is everyone ready? Please say ready in the chat box if you are ready to take part in today's session, and keep on tagging your friends and colleagues, whoever would be able to benefit from this session. Okay, Alex, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
I think you should be able to turn on your video. Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, Alexander, fantastic. So are you ready to teach lots and lots of nurses here on Facebook Live all about IELTS speaking?
Yes, I am, indeed.
Fantastic. So Alexander, for anyone who doesn't know, anyone who wasn't taught by you last week, we did a couple of classes last week. Anyone who's not familiar with you, can you briefly tell people about your experience, how you can help people with the IELTS, in particular the speaking today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked with IELTS training, IELTS classes for about 6 years in China initially, developing particularly speaking skills actually when I was working in China, and in South America as well, Ecuador, working with all elements of exam preparation for all the 4 skills. So obviously it's really important when you're doing the IELTS exam that you are extremely familiar with the exam that you're about to do. You need to know what it is that's going to come up, because that's going to help you in terms of your confidence and in terms of your performance level as well. That's something that's particularly the case with speaking, because naturally there are going to be issues with nerves. There are going to be issues in terms of making sure that you're able to give your best performance on the day. And the best way to ensure that you can do that is to make sure that you are as prepared as possible. So that's what I've done in terms of my teaching career and teaching experience. I spent a lot of time getting students prepared for that. I've also worked as a speaking examiner for major Cambridge examinations. So I've seen firsthand candidates coming to the examination room, and I've seen what makes a successful candidate in terms of speaking, and I've seen what makes a less successful candidate as well. And one of the things that really helps is that if you're able to go in there feeling confident and feeling prepared, if you know what the tasks are and you know what is expected of you, you're going to be in a much better place in order to perform to the best of your ability. It can make a big difference in terms of band scores when you come into the exam prepared. So that's what I'll be focusing on today, really, particularly looking at speaking part 2.
Fantastic. So, like Alexander says, we're specifically focusing on on part 2 because that's where a lot of students are having difficulties with the IELTS speaking exam. So, as I said before, nurses who are looking to go to America need a 7 in speaking and a 6.5 overall. So the 7 in speaking, that the area of speaking is more important than any. Of course, all of the areas are important, but 7 is particularly important because you need to get a 7, whereas there's no minimum in the other 3 areas. So that's what we'll be focusing on in detail today. Lots of students saying they're ready, Alex. So I think we can start. What I will say before we start with is we do these classes in collaboration with Kinetics. Many of you will be familiar with Kinetics. They are a recruitment agency based in America, and they help hundreds of nurses, if not thousands, every year to get their dream position in America. So we do these classes in conjunction with them, in collaboration with them. Unfortunately, Tanya, who usually joins me on these classes, wasn't able to attend today because she is ill. However, she will be back in the sessions we'll probably do a class either next week or after Christmas. So those classes that we do with Kinetics, these classes are really, really important. But if you want to find out more about Kinetics, make sure you go to their Facebook page or on Google. I think Malanis and some of her team are watching right now, so if you can post a link inside the Facebook group. So I think we're ready to get started, Alexander. So away we go.
Okay. So the first thing to look at then when it comes to the IELTS speaking is to know exactly what is expected of you. And by that, what I mean is you want to know what is going through the examiner's mind, how they're going to be grading you, and what influences their decision in terms of giving you a 7 or a 6.5, for example. So the first things then is to look at what are the actual criteria. And I've got a little slide here that I want to share with you. So you'll see here that you've got the 4 criteria that you're going to be graded on. So your fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So linking these to, these obviously are what you're going to be graded on throughout the whole test. Some of them are going to come into play particularly for speaking part 2. Now, part 1 is essentially a kind of getting to know you type part of the test. It's seen as essentially a warm-up. You are graded on it, but the grade is going to be based more on what you do in parts 2 and 3 because they are more challenging in terms of your what is demanded from you on a speaking level. So if you're aiming for 7 or above, then parts 2 and 3 are really where you need to be focusing in order to get that score. So you've got your part 1 warm-up. Hopefully that goes well, asking you about your background and your hobbies, your interests, those sorts of questions. And then when it comes to part 2, how are you going to demonstrate a high level in these 4 separate criteria? Well, in terms of fluency and coherence, you'll see here yourself, and this is freely available. You can see here there's the link, and I'll share that in the chat just so you can have a look at this after the session today. So you can see exactly what is required in order to get your band 7. And in terms of your fluency and coherence, it says here, speaks at length without noticeable loss of effort or coherence. So essentially what you need to be doing is you need to be speaking at a natural pace, and you need to be using pauses naturally. If you're pausing a lot and it seems as if you are unsure of a word or you're lacking in confidence, then that is going to affect your fluency score. So you need to be able to speak at a natural pace, use pausing naturally as well. There are times where I'm going to pause in this presentation today. There are times where Alex has paused as well, where we do it naturally, and it helps to facilitate communication. But if I'm pausing all the time, you can see there's a problem, and it seems as if there is an issue in terms of communication. So pausing is really important for fluency. Use it naturally, and don't be over pausing whilst you're communicating. But there can be some hesitation to get a 7. It doesn't have to be completely perfect. Obviously 9 is the highest score, but the point is that you don't want to be hesitating too much. What can help with coherence as well is if you're using certain linking words, linking expressions. So you're not speaking in sort of isolated short utterances or short sentences, but you're linking your ideas together. So for example, instead of saying, last year I went to Marbella, it was really fun, I really enjoyed it. You want to think of ways of linking those ideas together. So last year I went to Marbella and it was really fun. I had a great time. I'd love to go back. So you're sort of thinking of ways of sort of linking your ideas together, and again, avoiding too many pauses. Lexical resource. So lexical resource is basically your vocabulary. And of course, it's important to use vocabulary correctly, use the correct words. That's one element of lexical resource. So using appropriate choices. But in terms of getting a 7, what you want to be looking at is a variety of language as well. So you don't want to be repeating the same words again and again. You want to be using synonyms. You want to be sort of attempting to paraphrase, particularly for part 2. So again, talking about a place that you went to, you really enjoyed. Last year I went to Marbella. I really liked it in Marbella. There's a problem. You're repeating yourself there. So you want to be avoiding that. So last year I went to Marbella. The city was wonderful. I really enjoyed the beach. Okay, so you're using extra vocabulary, which is related to Marbella, the place that you went to, and you're avoiding just repeating the same words. Okay, so you show a little bit of flexibility. And also, when it comes to getting a 7, you want to be starting to use more what is described here as idiomatic vocabulary, so less common vocabulary. So instead of saying, I was really excited about going on the trip, you could say, I was over the moon about going on the trip. Instead of saying, I had a really good time, you could say, I had a blast, so you're using some of these expressions which would be used by native speakers, and it shows that you are aware of some more less common vocabulary phrases as you're communicating. So this isn't something that you need to do all the time, because I have had some candidates who sort of heard that advice and then they've sort of tried to use an expression almost every single moment that they're communicating, and it starts to sound unnatural if you do that. But if you're using these expressions, I would say at least sort of 2 or 3 of these expressions in speaking part 2, for the 2 minutes that you're speaking for, then that would be a good thing to do to show that you have that variety of language. Grammar is similar in the sense that accuracy of grammar is really important. A lot of speakers make mistakes when it comes to tenses, not using the past tense when they should do, or making mistakes in terms of not using the third person S. So my brother really liked going on holiday. It's something which even high level speakers do. So this is something that you really have to avoid doing, because as an examiner, if you're hearing mistakes like this, like not using ed for the past tense, or not using an S for he or she, then straight away that's like a red flag. And an examiner is going to say, okay, I don't think that this is a level 7 candidate. So you've really got to do your best to avoid that. One of the things that can help with grammar mistakes, and I recommend this to students all the time, is self-record. Record yourself speaking, listen back to it, because a lot of the time when these mistakes are made, the person making them doesn't even realize they've made the mistake. It's just a slip, really. It's not because they don't understand the grammar. It's just because of the fact that the concentration wasn't there, and so they made that error. So listen back to yourself. If you're making those sorts of mistakes, you really need to drill it. You really need to practice it, And the more that you practice, whether it be with a teacher, or even if it be with another candidate that you can sort of talk to and practice together, then the more you can help to sort of get rid of these errors. But as well as accuracy, again, it's about variety. So thinking about grammar, can you use conditional sentences? So if I had the opportunity of going to America, I'd visit New York. Okay, so using the second conditional, you've got there quite complex grammar, if plus the past tense, and then you're using would plus the infinitive form of the verb. So these sorts of things. Some people really respond well to grammar, and they really they think about language grammatically. Others, they use it. They're not necessarily thinking about it, they use it, and they use it correctly. However you do it, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know what a modal verb is necessarily, or what a conditional sentence is necessarily, if you know how to use them. If you don't know how to use them, then you will need to know what it is in order that can be explained, and that you can help to sort of broaden your grammatical knowledge. And then finally, pronunciation. So pronunciation is obviously about being intelligible. It's got to be really clear to the examiner what you're saying. If you're not able to communicate in a way which is intelligible, then you won't be able to get a 7 or above for the IELTS. So these are things like thinking about vowel sounds, making sure you're saying hat and not hut, and knowing the difference between the two, because those sorts of things can cause barriers to communication. Sometimes with speakers as well, particularly if your first language is Arabic, there can be issues in terms of p and b. That can be a problem sometimes. It doesn't usually create issues in terms of understanding, but it does create issues in terms of accuracy. So if you're saying, I'm really happy at the moment, if you're not hitting that p phoneme and you're hitting the b phoneme instead, examiners will pick that up, and that will come down as an error as well. So again, if you record yourself and listen to yourself, those are one of the key things that you want to listen to if that is an error that you're making. And also with pronunciation, using intonation. So not just speaking at a flat pace all of the time, and therefore losing a tool you have to communicate. Okay, you don't want to do that. Sometimes you want to go up if it's necessary, if you're giving new information, or if you're excited about what you're saying, but also to come down if it's something that's obvious that everybody knows, or if you're communicating maybe sometimes regret, which can happen. If you're telling a story to an extent in part 2, so you can use your voice and the intonation, the rises and the falls, in order to help to communicate your ideas. And that's something that you're going to be graded on as well. So those are the things to focus on then. There's quite a lot that goes into it. You want to be able to detect what are your strengths, and sort of keep doing those well. But even more importantly, really, what are your weaknesses? Because those are the things that you're going to have to focus on and practice in order to make sure that you're in the best shape possible for the IELTS speaking exam. So just quickly, in terms of part 2, you have to speak, as I'm sure you're aware, for an extended period of time. So it's going to be between 1 to 2 minutes. Always prepare to speak for 2 minutes, because if the examiner stops you midway, that is a very good sign. It basically means, look, I've got what I need from you. I don't need to hear you speaking anymore for part 2. I can move on. If you stop and the examiner waits, and there's that awkward pause, that's a problem for you as the candidate, because what the examiner is saying there is that I haven't had enough, and what they'll probably do is they'll ask a follow-up question just so they can get some more information from you, which allows them to then assess your speaking. So yeah, always over prepare. Go for the 2 minutes. If you're prepared to speak for 2 minutes, then it's likely the examiner will be stopping you rather than waiting for you, because they want you to speak for longer. Fluency is a massive part of that. You need to be able to keep going. One of the ways that, one of the tips that I like to share with students is, and this helps in terms of grammar as well, when you're starting to give your response to question part 2, start with the past. So something about the past. So what happened before the event? So it's a holiday you went on, a gift you received, someone who's inspired you in your life. Think about the past, So when I was a child, I always wanted to go to, or I always thought about, or I always wanted to receive. Something like that. It helps to set the scene. And then as the story goes on, you want to move to talk about the present at some stage. How do you feel about it now? What's the impact been on you? what have you learned from the experience, or just what are your reflections now in the current moment? And then to finish, something about the future. What will you do differently in the future, or what would you like to happen in the future, or how do you think your relationship will develop with this person in the future? What other gifts would you like to receive this Christmas or next Christmas? So what you're doing is you're using a variety of tenses by doing that, by using that structure. But what you're also doing is you're giving yourself as much opportunity as possible to keep speaking for the full 2 minutes. You've got a kind of structure there which you can use with almost any question, which hopefully helps you to access the as much information as you need just to keep going. Because again, you really don't want to stop before the examiner is ready for you to stop, because that's a negative sign in the exam. Okay, so those are some of the main tips that I would share to begin with. The self-recording, really sort of going and speaking for the 2 minutes. There's some useful activities. I don't know if you've heard of the activity called Just a Minute, although in the case of Ielts we can call it Just 2 minutes, where you practice talking on a topic. It could be any topic, and you practice talking on it without pausing, without repeating yourself, and without sort of moving away from the topic as well, so sticking to the topic. So this is again an activity that you can play. It can make it kind of fun. You can do it with another person. You could even just do it by yourself, again recording yourself. It's something that I do with IELTS classes with students as well, from time to time, and it's just a nice way to sort of help to improve your fluency.
Great stuff, Alex. So what I'd love to know from all the students watching now: Maria, Joan Erica, Mary Dison, Kirstine, Princess, Raphael, Charmaine, Flor Delisa, so many people watching. I'd love to know, what is the big difficulty with you with speaking right now? So Alex has got the speaking band descriptors on screen. Do you have problems with fluency and coherence, lexical resource, which is your vocabulary, grammatical range and accuracy, pronunciation? You're not sure how to answer the question. You're not sure how to generate ideas on what you want to say. What is the big difficulty for you right now? And maybe we can kind of personalize it a little bit for people depending on the difficulties that they're facing. Okay, so please let us know. We're not doing a class today on writing trees, or we've done previous classes. So if you want to look at our Facebook page, you'll be able to see previous IELTS writing classes that we've done for nurses in Lafora. Lots of people put in their friends and colleagues, tagging them inside this Facebook Live video so they can get access. Keep doing that, and we'll give you our free IELTS welcome pack at the end of this session. And it's got lots of video lessons, resources, tips, etc. to help you pass the exam. Very exciting, because very soon we've got one of our nurses called Karen, who is going to do a part 2 with Alexander. And so we'll be going through and doing that exercise with her and giving her some feedback with a band score estimation. So you'll see what a real life speaking examination is going to look like for the IELTS exam. So I'm really excited about that. And that's going to happen probably in the next 10 minutes or so, Alex?
Yep, sounds good, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so please let us know what the difficulties are for you. Like I said, the more active you are in these classes, the more you'll get out of it. Not many people asking questions, not many people telling us what their difficulties are, which is very different to the OET session we had a couple of hours ago. So please be as active as possible to all the people who are watching right now.
Okay, so we're going to do the speaking, as Alex said, then in about 10 minutes. Any questions that you have that you want to share on the chat, for those that are here on the chat, I can see those. If not, you can share them with Alex on the Facebook live group. Shall I look a bit more at part 2 and
absolutely, yeah. I think that's the area, Alexander, that people are struggling with, part 2 and part 3, but we'll cover part 2 today.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's helpful. I'm sure it will definitely be helpful for everyone who's watching right now.
Good. Okay, so in relation to part 2 then, as I began to say before, once you've done the first part, the Q&A, part 2 is an extended response that you have to produce. And you're going to have some time to prepare before you have to give your response. Now, this is a really important aspect of it, because the preparation time you have is 1 minute. You're going to be given the question, and it's going to be on a sheet of paper, a small sheet of paper, and you're going to be able to see exactly what is expected of you in terms of what you should be talking about. So I'll share an example of this with you now. It won't necessarily be the same question that I'll be doing with Karen, because I'll keep that as authentic as possible. But let me just share another example of what you could be asked for the speaking. Just bring that up. Okay. Okay, so here is an example then of a question that you could be asked. So, describe a child that you know. You should say who the child is, how you know the child, and when you see the child. So you're going to have a minute to, and then at the end, explain why you like or dislike this child. So you're going to have a minute to answer these 4 points. So most people benefit from scribbling down some notes here. I've had some candidates that are like, oh, no, I'm fine. I've got it all in my head. But remember, when you're in the exam room, the nerves are going to be there. There's going to be that tension there. So you really want to give yourself as much support as possible. So you're going to have the opportunity. You're going to have a pencil. So make some notes. Make some notes against each of the different points. These points are there to help you to structure your response. So your response should be more fluent and more coherent as a result. This is where you can use the technique I was talking about in terms of beginning in the past and then going into the present and then the future. So here, so describe a child that you know. So before you go into the questions, who the child is, how you know the child, when you see the child, you might want to give a little bit of background about yourself. So are you the sort of person who spends a lot of time in contact with children? Maybe you're a teacher of children. Maybe you have family members who are young children. So you can sort of give a brief sort of introduction about yourself. That helps you to kind of develop your response so that you've got more material. And then sort of how you know the child. Well, that straight away is opening up the door to talk about the past, isn't it? I met the child when I was volunteering at a school, and and then you can give details there using lots of past tense. And when you see the child is referring to the present. So now, when do you see the child? So I see the child when I go back and volunteer, and I do that sort of on a monthly basis, whatever the situation might be. And you can explain why you like or dislike the child. Again, you're talking about the present tense, but you can link that to past experiences. So, I really like this child because he's so positive and he's full of energy. For example, when I first started volunteering, he was the first person to greet me and make me feel welcome. And he really participated well in all the activities that we did. So you've got the opportunity to use that variety there. And then if the time is there, if the examiner is still waiting for you to speak, you haven't reached the 2 minutes, then you can start talking about the future. Do you think you're going to continue being in contact with this child? What do you think? How do you think your relationship might develop going forward? So you've got these points on the card. You have to answer all of these points, but don't feel that you have to rigidly stick to this and that you're not allowed to talk about anything else. You can talk about other points. It has to be linked to the same topic, but you can talk about other points which help you to sort of develop your answer and make sure that you hit the 2 minutes, because that's what you need to be doing. So you've got your 1 minute preparation. You've made your notes. You've got some ideas about what you're going to say. And then you get going. Now, issues. One issue which comes up quite a lot with part 2 is that sometimes it's a topic that the speaker doesn't like. Like, well, in this case, I don't really know any children. I'm a 33-year-old male. I don't really spend much time with kids. I don't have any kids, so you may not really like the question. So what are you going to do in this situation? You've got 2 options, really. One option is just to use your imagination. That's what you've got a minute there to do. You can, sort of maybe think about a time when you did spend time with kids, or, maybe think about some kind of nephew or any interaction that you can think of, use that as inspiration. Then you can invent extra details if you need to, in order to make the 2 minutes. Or you could be honest and you could say, to be honest, I don't really spend that much time around children. And then you could talk about maybe when you were at school, possibly, you know. But when I was at school, my best friend, you know, when I was 8 years old, was a kid who was this, who was that, who was the other. Talk about how your relationship has developed as you've gotten older. Do you still stay in contact, etc.? So something that is still as linked to the question as possible. You know, link it as closely as possible, but you know, but it's going to be a little bit different because your personal circumstances are different to what is on the question paper. My advice is generally try and stick as closely to the question paper as you can. And if you've got a good imagination, that means inventing some details. Remember, the speaker is not testing you for truth. They're not going to do any investigation into your private background to see if what you said during the exam is actually correct. All they want to know is that you're able to speak fluently and coherently and use grammar, vocabulary, and that you can pronounce English intelligibly. That's the main thing. So don't, you know, worry about sort of inventing being sort of unethical or anything like that. It's not at all. It just allows you to use your imagination. But not everyone has necessarily the ability to sort of invent, especially under pressure. So, you know, as long as what you're talking about is as closely related to the topic as possible, the examiner will understand that and appreciate that, and you will still be graded on your linguistic abilities, you know, even if you do have to change the question ever so slightly. So make sure that you keep talking. That's the main point. Use that 1 minute preparation as best as you can to help to set the framework for what you're going to be saying for the 2 minutes. Now, the question is always going to be something about you. It's a personal question, just as with part 1. Only in part 3 will the questions start to become more abstract and ask about your sort of opinions on topics like maybe sort of politics or economics or the climate or whatever it might be. So you should approach this really as imagine that you're talking to someone as best as you can, talking to someone who is interested in you, who wants to know about you. Your story, it should make sense, you know, it should be relatable, it should have some kind of structure to it. Again, that's why I talked about kind of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And it should be as coherent as possible. If you're kind of talking about one topic and then shifting to another and shifting back again, so it becomes confused, that's not such a good thing. That's why you've got your minutes to prepare, so you've got your notes to keep your long term as structured as possible, and so that's something to bear in mind as well. So as well as being sort of fluent, and as well as making sure that you are speaking for the required period of time, you want to speak as best as you possibly can in some kind of structure, so that it's easy for the person who's listening to follow the ideas that you are communicating. Okay. So at this point, if there are any questions or on what's been said so far, it'd be a good moment to share them.
Definitely, everyone.
Yeah.
Please, if you've got questions, like Alexander says, definitely share them. I think do you want to start the part 2 topic card, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay. So lots of people said on Facebook Live. Raphael and Kirstine said fluency. They had issues with fluency. Princess said vocabulary lexical resource. Generating ideas, that's quite a common one, Princess. And yeah, lots of people commenting. Keep your comments coming. So now is the most exciting part of the lesson. Would you agree, Alexander? Because absolutely. We've got absolutely. So we've got one of our nurses. Her name is Karen, and she has very confidently volunteered to come in and do an IELTS speaking part 2 with Alexander. So Alexander, let me see if I can bring Karen in to the session now. So hopefully we'll be able to see you, Karen. If you can, hopefully you'll be able to turn on your microphone as well. Let's see where you are.
Okay. I've just seen here, I've got, Alex, a question from an anonymous attendee, just asking about what I was talking about before, saying, can I use, yeah, so he or she says, can I use 3 children during part 2, for example, one from the past, one from the present, and from the future? Now, for that, I would be a little bit careful about making it sort of too confusing. So it does say who the child is, how you know the child, when you see the child. So really the question is intended to focus on one person specifically. So only if you're really running out of material and you've spoken about one child and you can't really think of anything else, would I move on to a second child? But really, if you're talking about the one child and the experiences you've had in the past and the experiences you have in the present and what you think will happen in the future, that should really be enough material to give you the 2 minutes. So yeah, I would just avoid overcomplicating the question if possible. Only if you're running out of material would I bring in more than one child in this case. I don't know what you'd say about that, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'm just worried about time, so let's get.
Yes.
I want to get Karen into the session. So in a minute, Karen, Alexander will show the topic card, but I can't see you, so hopefully you can see if I can unmute your microphone. Karen, are you there? Hello, Karen, can you hear me? Karen, can you try and speak? I've just unmuted your microphone. Oh no. Karen, are you there? Please speak so we can hear you. No, I don't think I think she's got a problem with her microphone.
Oh dear.
Are there any others? Hopefully we've got another person who would like to get involved. We don't have so many people in the Zoom session. Just Jane. Jane, would you like to do it with me? Sorry, with Alexander rather, not with me. I'm used to doing it. Jane, Camille. I know Camilla maybe is not wanting to do it. But Jane, do you wanting to do it? Oh no. I really wanted to have someone practice with Alexander.
Is that Jane coming up there? Or?
I've got Jane coming up. Let's see. Let's see if she wants to do it. Hello, Jane, are you there? Hello, Jane. Can you hear me? Hello, Jane. Okay. I think I don't. I think it might be. Let's see if anyone else comes in. But how about you analyze the part 2 card, Alexander, and see. Oh wait a minute. Is Karen coming back in? Karen, are you there? No, she's not got her microphone working now. Maybe if she comes back in, then we can try and bring her back in a bit. Okay.
So what I'll do is then I'll share the question that I would have done with Karen, so we can have a look at that together. So this is an official part 2 task, which is from the Ielts website, the British Council website, and so you can see here it's similar to what we looked at before, but this is the actual candidate task card that you will get. Okay, so with part 2, you can see it says the individual long term. Here is the task card. So describe something you own which is very important to you. You should say where you got it from, how long you've had it, what you use it for, and explain why it's important to you. So what I'll do is I'll just sort of go through the process as to how I would approach this question were I to be the candidate. So first of all, obviously, it's important to make some notes in your minutes preparation, which is what we should be doing. That's what we're going to have the opportunity to do before we speak. So, we're going to sort of write some things down in terms of, okay, so something I own, which is very important to me. So I don't want to spend too much time thinking about this because I've only got a minute. So let me just say laptop. Why? Because it's right here in front of me and it's quite expensive. So it's something I own and it's important to me. Okay. Where did I get it from? Okay, I got it from a place called Curry's in the UK. Brilliant. How long have I had it? It's quite a new one, actually. I've had it for about 2 months. What do I use it for? Well, I use it for online classes, but I also use it for other things, communicating with friends and family as well, browsing the web, etc. So I can just make notes on these different topics, okay? Now, why is it important to me? So I can talk about the price and also obviously the fact that it allows me to do my job, which is quite an important thing, and also it keeps me in contact with friends that I have from all over the world, people that I met in China, people that I met in South America, and etc. So so these are the things that we want to do. So by making notes on all these different topics, what I'm doing here is I'm ensuring that I'm going to answer all the different parts of the question. Okay, so that's one of the important things, obviously, is being able to do that. Now, looking at my notes here, could I use these notes to speak for 2 minutes? Possibly, but maybe I'd want to add a little bit more just to be safe. So if I have the time during my preparation, I might want to add something a little bit extra. So it could be when it says, for example, where I got it from. Well, I got it from Curry's, but before I went to Curry's, I was actually looking in a few other places. I went to some of the local shops nearby, supermarkets, stuff like that. So I might add that in just as extra details, because stuff like that can help me fill the 2 minutes. Remember what I said before as well, in terms of sort of starting in the past, moving to the present, and ending in the future. So I might want to talk about the laptop that I had before this. Why did I need a new laptop? What happened to the old one? You know, and in the present, you know, sort of, I guess the question in terms of what I use it for is going to help me deal best with the present. And then in the future, do I think I'll keep using the laptop for the same sorts of things? You know, will I continue using it to communicate with friends? Will I continue in using it in terms of sort of online teaching? How long do I think I'll have this for, perhaps before I go and buy another one, for example? So these are the things we can do just as a general strategy in order to help kind of develop my response, and just to provide some extra information. So I'll just sort of make a note of some of these points, because they can be useful to reflect on. Let's move this out of the way. Okay, so yeah, so as I say, in terms of sort of what you're writing, it should just look like really short points. So if I just sort of stop the share for a second and share here. Yeah, really short points. So you don't need to be writing lots of information. You know, it's going to be literally sort of things like this that you're going to be scribbling down, you know, answering the different points, 2 months, online classes, friends, and then what was the other point that I made? Yeah, and the reason it's important is price, job, ability to communicate. So really, you know, I can write all this stuff down probably in 30 seconds, and that's when you start adding on other things. So sort of thinking about future, how long will I have it for? Other things I could do with the laptop. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about in terms of just sort of scribbling down these different points. And you might even think at the past, why did I buy it? Okay, so these are sort of extra things that you can add on, because as I say, the important thing is to reach 2 minutes. And what happens so often with part 2 speaking is that the speaker will kind of get to a minute, and then we'll start to pause a little bit, and then we'll start to struggle when it comes to coming up with sort of more information. If you've got some notes written down in front of you, as well as the ones that answer the question, you want some extra ones if you've got time, just to help to give you that background preparation. Then you're going to be in a much stronger position to make sure that you hit those 2 minutes. Okay, so we've done that preparation. Let's just go back to the card again. To see what we've got. So you've got the instructions. You have to talk on the topic for 1 to 2 minutes. You've got the minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. As I say, make sure you do make the notes. Now, let's say, you know, for whatever reason, we've not managed to make those 2 minutes. What happens in that case? Well, what the examiner will do is he or she will ask extra questions. So you can see the extra questions you've got here. Is it valuable in terms of money? Well, that was one of the notes that I wrote down. But if you've not answered that question, then the examiner will use that question in order to get you to speak a little bit more about the topic. Would it be easy to replace? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? And so, you know, that gives you an opportunity to expand again a little bit more. So it's not a case of you stop talking, that's the end of the exam. If the examiner needs more information from you, then he or she will ask those extra questions. And then it's just a case of obviously responding to those questions, linking it back as best as you can to the information that you've already given. So let's say, for example, in my case, the examiner asks, is it valuable in terms of money? I might use an expression like, well, as I said previously, yeah, the laptop was quite expensive, but I saw it as an investment because of all the things that I use it for, both in terms of sort of work, and also it's important for me as well on a personal level to be able to communicate with friends from around the world who I otherwise would not be able to communicate with. And, you know, would it be easy to replace? Sometimes you're going to get a question like this and you might, you know, you're not expecting it necessarily. So what can be good there is just what I call the using some kind of discourse marker, using some kind of expression to give you a little pause. So we're like, oh, well, that's a good question, actually. Well, no, it wouldn't be easy to replace because, and then, you know, you can talk about maybe the cost of it, or maybe it's got sentimental value if it's an object that you've had for a long period of time, or something of this nature. So yeah, be prepared if you're not hitting those 2 minutes to face and to field those extra questions which might come up, and answer those questions obviously as best as you can. Another preparation tool is YouTube is really helpful because you've actually got YouTube videos which show candidates performing at different levels. So there's a YouTube video for a candidate who performs at a level 7, for example. And it's pretty good to see that, because then you can kind of compare yourself and say, okay, you know, is she using vocabulary that I don't usually use? Is she more accurate with her grammar than I am? Does she speak with fewer hesitations, you know, with fewer pauses than I do? So you can begin to compare yourself with a level 7 candidate and see in which areas you're a little bit stronger and in which areas you could work on in order to get yourself up to that level as well. And in listening as well to those YouTube videos and to those YouTube candidates, what you're doing is you're going to be exposing yourself to some good examples. You might be able to take some of the expressions and phrases that the candidate uses. You know, go above, look at the 7 to see what it is that you're aiming for, but also go above a 7. Try and find out what is an 8 saying, what is a 9 saying, because then you can actually kind of, you know, use some of their expressions if it's appropriate for your question. And it's just an opportunity to learn some new language and just to upgrade really on where you're at. So yeah, just a YouTube search, IELTS speaking, you know, grade 7, grade 8, grade 9 will give you results for that. And it's a good tool in terms of your preparation, because, you know, had we been able to do the speaking with Karen today, then I'm sure it would have been a good opportunity as well to listen to some of the language that she produces, which is you know, always a great sort of learning tool to benefit from.
Thank you very much, Alexander. So let's see what questions we've got coming through. Anything based on what Alex talked about today with regards to this topic card, or anything about IELTS speaking part 2, or any of the sections for that matter at all. We've got the last 5 minutes of the class that we're going to be holding for you. And unfortunately, we weren't able to have Karen coming into the session today, as I think she had some technical issues. But hopefully we can do one next time whenever we do have another IELTS speaking class. So any questions at all coming through? We've got Nala, Rona, Jin, Princess, Kirstine, Raphael, lots and lots of people watching right now. So if there's any questions at all about anything Alexander's spoken about, please let us know. If not, then I think summarizing the most important, most pertinent points today might be the best use of the last 5 minutes, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, always make sure that you're aware of the criteria and that you're hitting those criteria. So we've looked at what the 4 are, but there's 2 points that you really want to think about in relation to that. One is accuracy. You want to make as few mistakes as possible, but also just as important is variety. So if you stick to really simple language and think, oh, I did a really good job because I didn't make any mistakes. No, you need to be showing that you've got variety as well as the ability to be accurate. So less common vocabulary, less common grammatical structures are things which the examiner is going to be looking for as well. Use your preparation time wisely. You've got 1 minute there. make sure you get your notes down on a piece of paper. Add some extra notes that maybe aren't contained on the card, just to give you that extra information to help you get to the 2 minutes. And if for whatever reason you're not able to make the 2 minutes, then be prepared for follow-up questions. Give yourself some time for reflection if necessary. That's a good question. Yeah, I've not thought about that, but now you mention it. So some of those phrases, which are particularly good actually for part 3, but they can also be useful for part 2 if you do get follow-up questions for this section of the exam. So those are the main things to look at. And in your preparation, for those that have identified weaknesses in terms of whether it be vocabulary, fluency, etc., you are and you can be a really good judge of your own speaking, but not as you're doing it, only once you've recorded it. So do get used to recording yourself, whether it be on your phone or on your laptop or wherever you want to do it. Record yourself, listen back to it, be critical, see, what kinds of errors are you making, what kinds of mistakes are you making, and then you can use that as your own focus in terms of going forward. So it's a really good thing that you can do to help improve.
We had a question from Kathy Dominguez. She said, how do you develop the skill of spontaneity with speaking?
That's a good question, Catherine. See, buying myself a bit of time there whilst I think about the best way to respond. I think being honest helps. The way to think about it, particularly with parts, well, with all of the speaking really, is it's not that you're being tested so much on giving the perfect answer. It's just, imagine you're having a conversation. So, imagine that you're with a friend and you're having a chat over dinner, whatever it might be. The sorts of questions you're going to be asked, particularly for parts 1 and 2, are going to be those sorts of things. The examiner is going to be asking questions that allow you to talk about yourself. So I think one of the things that helps is that if you're confident talking about yourself, that gives you a natural advantage straight away. If you're not, practice it. Because, for some people, we're all different. Some people are more introverted. They're not so comfortable talking about themselves. Well, for the IELTS, you have to do it. That is one of the things that you have to do for parts 1 and 2. So it's something which, if it doesn't come to you naturally, it's worth practicing. So really speaking to people in English, it could be anyone. It could be sort of someone that you meet, sort of having Skype conversations, doing things like this, and having conversations with teachers as well is really useful. Or even talking to someone who is good at English as well that and just practice talking about yourself and talking about your interests and your hobbies and your backgrounds. Because the more comfortable you are talking about yourself and your past experiences, the better you're going to do in IELTS, particularly parts 1 and 2.
Fantastic, Alex. Thank you very much, as always, for your help with IELTS speaking for our nurses today. Thanks very much for everyone who's come along to the session. We hope that you've been, it's been beneficial to you. I know you've got another class to attend now, Alexander. So thanks very much. So, briefly, before the end of the class today, firstly, I want to know, was this class beneficial to you? Please let me know in the chat box. Hopefully it was. And like I said, next time, whenever we do another IELTS speaking class like this, I'd love to have a nurse come in the session with me. Unfortunately, we wanted to have Karen, but I think she had problems with her audio in the session. You will have seen inside on Facebook, I've actually gone ahead and posted a link to something I'm very, very excited about, which is our IELTS speaking classes with our ex-IELTS examiners that are going to be started in January. So these are classes just for IELTS speaking. We want to have a small number of nurses who are going to be doing these classes with our ex-IELTS examiners, where you can practice your speaking part 1, part 2, and part 3. You'll get feedback, tell you what you can do to improve. We'll be trying out many different kinds of scenarios, different part 2 topic cards, but also you'll have access to different kinds of questions for part 1 and part 3. And we'll tell you what you can do to improve your level from where you're at right now to where you're looking to get to, which is a band score 7 for nurses who are looking to go to America. So that is a waiting list that you can join. Like I said, I've posted that inside the Facebook group chat, but I'll post it again for everybody so you can get access to it. This is I've posted in here the free IELTS pack, welcome pack, which I'm posting in here now. Free IELTS welcome pack. So this is video lessons that you can get access to. Be really, really helpful to you and your performance. So that is there for you. And I'll also be posting also the waiting list link. So if you give me 1 second, I'm going to put that in there now for you, which is, let me just find it again. Pages. Okay, speaking class waiting list. Okay, so I'm just going to post that in there for you now if you've not seen it already. This is here for you. So if you do want to join, this is a paid course. As I said, you know, we're always trying to help you as much as possible with free classes, but of course we cannot practice with you in such a short session. But if you really want intensive classes with us, they're going to be starting in January. So feel free to access that waiting list link. All you do is put your name on this list to say that you're interested, and then probably in the next week or so, we'll tell you more about how you can actually join and join us in our intensive live class packages for IELTS speaking. Don't worry if you cannot come to all the classes live, because you'll have access to all of the recordings after the class has finished. So if you know anyone who's interested in that as well, feel free to pass the link on to them and they can join us. If you are one of those really motivated nurses who wants to fulfill your American dream and become a nurse in the US as soon as possible, and you want to get a 7 in your IELTS speaking, incorporating a lot of the ideas that Alex and our other ex-IELTS examiners have been talking about, and you want to get practice, feedback, corrections on your grammar, your fluency, pronunciation, etc., make sure you join that waiting list, and we'll tell you about how you can join very, very soon. So I've posted that link inside there. Hussein, it's just for IELTS speaking. We'll also give you one of our IELTS speaking video courses as well. So you'll get the live classes, the lesson recordings, and you'll get our speaking video course with exercises as well. So it's everything there for you. Make sure you join that waiting list. So Ray said, I'm interested. I'm hoping to catch the rest of your classes. And Hussein, yeah, interested for speaking only. So make sure you go ahead, join that waiting list. Thank you very much for all the people who've attended today. Hopefully this session has been helpful for you. Please give us your feedback and continue to share this live class video today. And you can see I've posted the free IELTS Welcome Pack video course in there as well, which you can get access to anytime. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great weekend wherever you are in the world. And like I said, keep practicing your speaking. Get a study partner if you don't have one, and join our IELTS speaking classes in January. Thank you to everyone in Lafora. Thank you, Luis, for our continuous and strong collaboration. Also, thank you to Kinetics, to Tanya, to Milanis, and all the team. Make sure you register with Kinetics if you're looking to fulfill your American dream. They are always there, ready, and really motivated to help as many nurses as possible. Get well, Tanya. I know Tanya's very sick today, but usually she joins me in these classes. So get well soon. And for everyone else, have a great weekend. And I look forward to seeing you in the next class.